Hi, I'm here to give my thoughts about Frozen, the hit Broadway musical, the 2025 release on Disney Plus. I'm a huge Frozen fan. The two Frozen films are my two favorite Disney films. Elsa is my favorite Disney character. She's at least one of my favorite characters in all of fiction. Uh, and I felt very curious to see what Frozen, the hit Broadway musical, would be like. Because it seemed like it would be the closest thing that there's been so far to a live action Frozen film. And there was some TV show stuff. Frozen characters appeared in Once Upon a Time. I thought it would be really cool to see what the live action musical version of Frozen would be like. And I didn't know how much it would look like a movie or not, but I think it really works. And I really like it. I think that it's a lot of fun to watch. In terms of being an adaptation, I think that it's a strong adaptation that has some differences. And when it comes to adaptations doing differences, I tend to have somewhat of an open mind about that because I feel like adaptation should have at least something to offer that's different from what it's adapting from. I feel like it shouldn't be the exact same thing as the same story with the same lines. It should certainly have similarities, but I don't think it should be the exact same sort of thing. But there's also the possibility of changes being bad changes that ruin the story. Thankfully, there are no awful changes. And there are some changes that I am a fan of. Um, for example, in the Frozen film, the Duke of Wesselton sends his bodyguards out after Elsa. Um, but in the Broadway musical, the Duke of Wesselton is there, and it feels more personal that way. I really like the fight between Elsa and the bodyguards in Frozen. It's a really exciting scene, and the bodyguards are going after Elsa because of the Duke of Wesselton, so it still feels somewhat personal, but it does feel a lot more personal to have the Duke of Wesselton there. And I also really like what's done with the Duke of Wesselton at the end of the musical. I thought that was also a cool change. Um, I feel like the parents were around a little longer than they were in the film. Like, they still aren't in the film that long, but at least they have a little bit more time, in my opinion, for what I felt, to flesh out their personalities. Like, I feel like the mother is much more of a character than she was in the first Frozen film. Um, she got a lot more to say, and even the dad had a little bit more of a presence, so I like that. When Elsa's big song comes out, it happens later in the story in the Broadway musical than it did in the animated film. It was taking so long that I was wondering, like, are they actually letting out Let It Go? Like, I would feel so confused if they excluded Let It Go from a Frozen adaptation. It was certainly worth the wait, though, but it did feel odd to have it at a different point in the story. And the Broadway musical is longer than the animated film, and a lot of scenes are longer than they were in the animated film, but there are also a few things that are quicker. Like Anna deciding to go after Elsa and leaving Hans in charge, it feels like it was so much faster. Um, and I do prefer in the animated film where there's a talk that Anna and Hans have with the Duke of Wesselton. And it felt like it was a scene that should have been uh, a little bit longer. So it being so rushed through in the Broadway musical felt odd to me. the Broadway musical feels more adult than the animated film. Um, there's more adult humor, where I think the first Frozen animated film just had like one or two adult jokes. In the Broadway musical, things felt a little bit more suggestive. Um, Nothing too awful in my opinion, but considering Frozen appeals to a lot of really young viewers, that did feel odd to me to include some of that stuff. I wasn't sure if that was the best idea, considering that Frozen appeals to really young audiences, of course, in addition to a lot of adults, um, but there was nothing that really felt mean spirited or in that way. Like in the sense it's more adult, like it feels like the jokes are a little more on the interesting side. It didn't feel like it was like crueler or anything or more scary. So that's good. I really like the costumes. I think they look good. I think that Elsa very much looks like Elsa, and Anna really looks like Anna. I don't think the Duke Wellston has glasses, and he did look younger, which was somewhat distracting for me. Hans looked good. I feel like he was in the white suit from the animated film more often than like his more iconic outfit. Um, and I'm not really recalling his big iconic outfit from the animated film being in the musical, but it's not like a huge problem or anything. I think that the hair on an Elsa looks perfect. It feels like a perfect adaptation uh, of like the animated film brought into live action. And considering the limitations on like effects and stuff like that, the Broadway musical looks really good. I was very happy with it. Aside from like what's done with Olaf, I feel like there's nothing distracting about the low budget, and I'm not a big fan of Olaf, anyways. Um, and I feel like the Broadway musical really captures a lot of the heart, entertainment, and magical feelings of Frozen. So I had a really good time watching it. I love it. Of course, I don't love it as much as the animated film, and I was not expecting to. I wanted to think about some things I did differently and stuff like that, but not be like, oh, well, if it's not as good as the animated film, then it's no good or anything like that. I certainly wasn't going into that attitude. And with some of the extra scenes with the Duke Weston, there are a few things about the Broadway musical that I do prefer over the animated film. So that's really cool. I feel like that's very much something that I want in an adaptation. And also captured a lot of the same elements and moments that I love from the animated film. So it's really good.